Hello, I hope you are doing great there. Let's get started with this video. Here you will get to know about RanchiMall's FLO Web Wallet and all its functions like how we can use it to create a FLO ID and its private key, send FLO to a FLO address, send rupee token to a FLO address, send a message on FLO blockchain and monitor a FLO address. Let me first tell you what is FLO Web Wallet. It is a web-based wallet for FLO blockchain which can be used for making transactions, monitoring the FLO address on FLO blockchain, and many more. You don't have to install any software for this. It provides pure HTML web-based wallet architecture. And just using this web wallet, we can send or receive FLO. This video has been divided into 5 major parts. The first is creating a new FLO blockchain ID and its private key and recovering a FLO ID with its private key. The second is sending FLO token to a FLO address. And in this video, I'll also be explaining how we can send rupee token and the blockchain version of rupee. Also, other tokens can be created and sent via web wallet. The third part is sending rupee token to another FLO ID. The fourth is sending a message on a FLO blockchain. And fifth is monitoring a FLO ID. Let's get started with the first part, that is, creating a new FLO blockchain ID and its private key and recovering a FLO ID using its private key. For this, first, you need to know about what actually is a FLO blockchain ID. For being a user on FLO blockchain, one has to create his own identity for using and communicating on blockchain. The FLO ID is similar to your email address, and the private key here refers to the password. But in case of blockchain, you cannot reset your private key. That is why it's important to keep it safe. At first, we will generate a new FLO address and a private key pair. By clicking on Generate New Address, here you can see a new FLO blockchain ID and a private key is generated. By clicking on Copy, you can copy the FLO ID and its private key directly from the web wallet. You need to save this FLO blockchain ID and the private key somewhere safe. Now we will see how can we recover a FLO ID if we have the private key and lost the address. Private key is the only key to access your blockchain address data. For example, if you have your private key and you lose your FLO ID, click on this function. Here you need to enter the user's private key which was associated with the FLO ID that has to be recovered. So I am adding the same private key we generated before. When you click on OK, you can see once the correct private key is entered, the corresponding FLO address is displayed again. Remember, if you lose your private key, there is no going back. And also, don't share your private key under any circumstances. Now let's see the second part, that is to send FLO to other FLO ID. Here, you can check your FLO balance by simply adding your FLO address. For example, I have added a FLO address here, and let's see what happens if I click on Check Balance. You can see it has appeared how much available balance of FLO this FLO address has. For every transaction done on FLO blockchain, there is some FLO balance used. That is known as transaction fees. The minimum transaction fee required is 0.0005 FLO, and on any you have to send a minimum of 0.001 FLO to make this transaction successfully go through FLO blockchain. So a total of 0.0015 FLO will be needed to make any FLO transaction. Now let's send some FLO to another FLO ID. For this, you have to add the receiver's address. So I am adding a FLO address and some amount of FLO to be transferred. In the FLO data, you can send a message related to the transaction you are making, or you can keep it blank as you wish. I will explain the FLO data in the next section. Now hit the send button. Now it will ask for your private key. When you click on continue, you can see the flow is transferred to the address you entered. In the third function, we can send a user rupee token to another FLO ID. As discussed, any transaction we make needs some flow to be sent because, speaking in terms of blockchain technology, a transaction means that you are sending some amount of crypto to other blockchain address, and without that, a transaction won't be possible. The amount of rupee token can be sent via flow data. For sending any amount, just enter the amount in numbers and write rupee with the hash symbol to make a rupee token transfer. The token tracker script will recognize the rupee amount and will transfer it. These messages are stored in FLO blockchain permanently. Also, when we are sending rupee token to some address, we must mention the rupee amount in digits and not in words, like 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever amount, except in decimal and less than 1 will not work. One more important thing here is that never enter two different amounts or digits in one message because rupee token recognizes only one amount. For example, if a person is sending you rupee token and used the structure of words, that is date 2/7/2021, send 2000 rupee token to Joe. This will be failed as the token tracker script will fail to recognize which is the rupee amount here. It will get confused between 2/7/2021 and 2000. When sending rupee token, use only one amount in digit. Any other character in maths in digit form will make the transaction fail. Now let's see what structure of words work here. You just have to write send to rupee token. You can also write as send 2 rupee token to Joe or Joe send 2 rupee token. Means you write anyways, it's just the right words are there, token transfer will happen. You can also use give or transfer word instead of send. Now hit the send button. It will ask for your private key. When you click on continue, you will see that the transaction has been made successful. The fourth function of Web Wallet is that flow messages can also be sent using it. Let's see it from the beginning. The first box will show you how much flow amount is available in your flow ID. For finding that, you have to first enter your flow ID in the second box. The third box, which is the receiver's address, is where you will enter the flow ID of the user you are sending the flow messages to. Now fill some amount of flow. And for example, in flow data, I wrote, "Hey Joe, RanchiMall is going to launch its FLO Web Wallet project on 25th July. Be there." The flow data here are the blockchain messages that are sent from one flow ID to other. These messages can hold any and every kind of information useful to the receiver, which is later saved in blockchain. Maximum of 1040 characters are allowed as a message in one transaction. There are some specific characters that are not recognized, such as a new line or tab press on keyboard, just because they are not a part of general English. Our FLO Web Wallet automatically fixes those errors if added in flow data, so you don't have to worry about that. All alphabets, all digits, and all basic characters are accepted in the flow data. Now let's send the flow data. When you click on send, it asks for your private key. When you click on continue, you can see the flow data has been sent successfully. The last but not the least part is the monitoring page of Web Wallet. Here, you will see a plus sign in the down right corner of the page. When you click on it, it asks for a flow ID you want to monitor and a label for that flow address. Suppose I add a flow ID of my friend Joe. After entering the credentials, You can monitor and see which FLO ID has written what messages on blockchain. It takes data from FLO Blockchain. You can see all the transactions here which has FLO data on it associated to this particular FLO address. The refresh button here will help us to see the updated transactions of the FLO address.